I dare say we probably did one of the first ever podcasts before they were called podcasts. I hate the idea of when people say I have no regrets. You should regret. That's what a logical, healthy person does. They're buying your confidence. They're buying into your confidence, right? So if you come up and you say, I absolutely know what I'm doing, I'm very sure of the idea that I have in mind, they're prepared to take a risk with you, even though it's not really 100%.
And welcome back to Edric Poon and Company, the podcast where anybody can inspire everybody. Now, in this episode of the podcast, we're looking at discovering the importance of personal branding and how it's important for both the salaryman and the business owner. Now, I've enlisted the help and wisdom of a household name, a name that's been heard over the air for 40 years, I think? Well, almost there, I think. He's a professional MC, a radio personality, a professional speaker. He's a trainer. He's even a little bit of a mentalist, so he says. He's Joe Augustin. Joe, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, hi. Hey, listen, I hate to say that I was on radio when I was only 15 years old, but I wasn't. So 40 years of radio experience is a little bit too much to give me. Close to 30 years though. I think that's a fair number. I got on the air when I was about 18 years old, and in Singapore for about 26, 27 years.
Yeah, and you started off in what, Brunei?
Well, the first time I got on the radio was, I was in Brunei. It was a little show on Radio Television Brunei. They had a Saturday show where they had guest DJs, and I tried my hand at that. It seemed to work out pretty okay.
Well, you were definitely very successful at that with a career that spanned that much or that long, right? With radio. I on the other hand, tried to join a radio show here in Singapore. I got booted out real quick, so I didn't quite make it.
I mean, listen, we have that in common because towards the end of my career, I got booted out a few times from a few places as well. So,
well, I think you showed a lot of cojones doing a lot of the stuff that you were doing. And well, let's put it this way. If it didn't fit for you, I was one of the audiences at the time, and I was like, go Joe, do it.
Where were you in radio? I don't recall.
I never made it. I went on to this thing called the next radio star, something like that. I went for the second round of that, and it was the Muttons at the time who were judging.
Right.
Nice guys, gave great advice, and I think, okay, first of all, the advice they gave me, right, and I think it really helped me, was that, hey, Edric, you got to stop being the announcer guy. You got to be more, the word they're looking for personality. So I'm like, okay, so that's the difference between I guess a strip club DJ voice versus the the radio personality.
You're begging to be asked to demonstrate what the strip club DJ voice is. I can't wait.
Hey Joe, to the stage. Joe, to the stage. Everybody get your $2 bills out. Joe,
$2. My goodness, seriously. Wow, it's a hard life, man.
Well, that's what she said. Anyway, so moving along, it's not that I want to be a strip club DJ, but the dream was always there. But in the end, we went into podcasting. Now, I mean, let's not waffle anymore. We did want to get you on board because the number of years that you've had in your career. Were you ever intentional about building this personal brand of yours?
I was intentional, and in some ways, and in other ways, it was kind of instinctive. So later on in life, I learned about the idea of personal branding and those kinds of ideas. And so when I look back in reflection, I was doing something like that. But my personal brand was always designed around the idea that I wanted to be comfortable being who I was. I didn't like the idea of a second kind of personality on the radio where if you met me in person, you'd be very surprised. I wanted to be the same kind of person you would hear on the radio. So when you saw me in jeans and a t-shirt, you knew that was just me being comfortable. And I wouldn't say it was sophisticated in what I was trying to do. I was just trying to avoid being complicated. I didn't like the idea of celebrity in its usual form. I didn't like the idea of having to dress up. I never liked the idea of doing that. So for me, I didn't want to create that impression so that I had to live up to it. So I preferred to have the idea of being, if you like, the average Joe, so that I was very much capable of being just who I was for most of the time. Um, if you think about, if I think later on about what I was trying to go on for, I think I was much more about being known, not so much for my voice. It was what I was saying and what I was putting across and what I was thinking. And to me, that's much more valuable because, there were a lot of great voices that came and went. And I didn't want to be among those.
Hmm. It's really interesting that you say that, because I remember when I first started reading up about trying to develop your persona, trying to develop your own personal brand. Many of it, or many of the books and the videos and even the audio tapes. I mean, back in the day, we still had audio tapes, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The system was always find and model somebody first, but yet your path didn't seem to model anybody. Or did you already have somebody in mind?
When I talk about doing anything original in the world, there are very few people who are absolutely original in the world, because you do have to see something and then you have to try something and then you end up doing something, right? For me, when I got on the radio, who I was modeling myself after was Casey Kasem. I always liked stories. So when he was doing his long distance dedications and stuff like that, he used to read them. I mean, he used to deliver them really well. So that was for me the model that I had from there. And the advice I give most people is this: you always start by imitating, and because most of us are not that good at imitating, we end up creating something sort of original, right? So your bad Casey Kasem becomes, the early Joe Augustin. So that's kind of where I would say I came from.
Wow. So in other words, it's kind of like an imitation or even an impression of Casey Kasem at the very beginning.
Well, I think all artists do that, right? I mean, everybody who picks up a paintbrush, you
Mm.
are going to try and create something that is based on, you start maybe with your own. Usually, you start by learning the basics and you try and figure out how to paint, right? And then you start doing the other stuff and you become original, right? So there are very few examples in the world that I can say are absolutely original. I mean, you can talk about Leonardo da Vinci, um, and if you look at the style, you realize that that's not really original, right? In terms of an original style, maybe you might see someone like Vermeer and go like, well, that was, revolutionary for its day because it looked photographic. But the essence of it is still there. The essence of it is still using the paintbrush to try to recreate colors, to capture light.
Mm.
And what you do is you improve on it and you push a bit further. So you start by doing something. Vermeer, I think, since I use him as an example, he wasn't always the fantastic artist that he was. You have to start somewhere. Just like, I guess, Da Vinci. And I hate to be talking about all these people in the same kind of breath of paragraph as I'm talking about myself here, but I'm reminded of Steve Jobs, who stole the line from what's his name now? I can't remember now, but it's a great artist steal, right? So you really, really take on something, you do it as best you can, you try to be as deep down, or Salvador Dali. That's who it was. So it's Steve Jobs who stole from Salvador Dali, and now I'm stealing from them as well. The imitators are not to be looked at, but real artists. Really. I'm completely botching this up, so the fact checkers are going to have fun with this. But yeah, artists steal, basically. That's the idea.
How do you think you actually, well, again, intention was one thing. How did you do it intentionally? And secondly, how did it actually lead you from one point in your career to another? It seemed like while you were doing the radio bits, you were also MCing. And then from there, now you're teaching, you're coaching, vocal training, storytelling, stage presence. There's so many things that you're teaching right now. How did you move from one point to the other?
I'd say that at every point, what happens is you have to be a promise of value to whoever it is that you are engaging, right? So your audience, your customers, whoever it is, they have to feel that they're getting the value that they want from this particular situation, right? So when they hire an MC, they want an MC to do certain things. And I try to be the MC that is a bit more mentally present. I'm always processing what's being said. I summarize what's going on stage. And for a good time, I actually was kind of like pushing the idea of being the smarter MC, right? Just an idea that you could rely on me, and I was the insurance package that you could buy on a corporate event, because you know that Joe would say the right thing at the right time, right? I would say where it came from is just having a personal set of values for myself in terms of standards, right? I like to think that I hold pretty high standards when it comes to certain aspects of my life. When it comes to programming, when it comes to thought, when it comes to logic, when it comes to research, when it comes to credibility, those are the areas where I feel very strongly about. And I think if you are to say something, if you're to say anything, it needs to be something that is, I would say, bulletproof, but it needs to have at least gone through enough of a process, so it's not just this first idea that's arrived at your lips moments before. If you've been given the microphone, right? I mean, as a thing, even podcasting as the medium that it is right now, I think too many people just go like, okay, I have a mic, I can do it now, right?
No.
The facts are, like, I think something like 95% of all podcasts in the world have less than 3 episodes.
Mm.
Right? It's simply because there's not enough thought or ideas that have gone into it.
Yep.
To start embarking on something like that, or even in terms of what they're saying as well. Because I mean, I like to support people, and they say I've got a new podcast, and then you just put it on, and you go like, okay, this is it's a waste of time, you know. So that's the real challenge. I think you have to think about this, and every time you open your mouth, where somebody else is expected to listen to you, to say something of value, something that can engage them and pay off if they stay engaged in a certain way beyond, you know, oh, I wasted my time with them, or I killed. No one turns on a podcast to kill an hour. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I mean podcasters face, right? It's this idea that, oh, maybe I could get my podcast monetized. I've got a mic, so let's just press record and see what happens. You know, it's that kind of mentality. But the truth is, many people don't understand how much work goes into it, the amount of prep that you have to do, the research that you have to do, the investment into your equipment, your setup. On top of that, the fun part is doing this, just speaking on the mic, understanding the questions, and trying to derive the value that you want to give to your audience and what they need from you. But what they don't see is the other 95%, which is editing, distributions, and all the other work that, nobody wants to do. And it's the rest of us pixel monkeys just pressing buttons and trying to make things happen.
Yeah. It's hard work. I had a couple of podcasts. Well, more than a couple of podcasts. I had a few podcasts before. And it was tiring, and I would say in some ways, to me, unrewarding enough for me to say I think I don't want to keep trying to do this. But again, it was just a different metric that I was living my life on. I'd lived in radio before. Our previous, our previous week's ratings were between like 350,000 to 400,000 people listening, right? And it's humbling to get into the podcast world and go like, a new podcast just released, and you go like, and people genuinely like you, and then for the first hour or first 2 hours, it's like, oh, seven people have it, and then but it was quite good. We actually had one of the most successful podcasts back in the day. So Shireen and Joe, the reason I know the numbers is because we were in some kind of a I would say, I don't want to say argument, but there was some disagreement that was going on with the radio station that we parted ways with. But we kept numbers, and we're quite heartened. There was like 300,000 downloads,
Wow.
and back in the day, right? I dare say we probably did one of the first ever podcasts before they were called podcasts. And actually, back in the days when Pacific Internet was setting up, we recorded the first radio shows that were released. I would say almost the first radio shows that were released in Singapore, and we had the first live jazz broadcast as well. We were using Realcaster, and I think Realcaster. I think no, it was real audio, real audio's live encoding, and broadcasting at 51 kbps. State of the art.
You've picked up so many skills over the years, right? And what did you have to see in yourself or tell yourself to stay with your path? And that, again, you mentioned your value system and you've kept that very close to you. Have you never actually questioned yourself to go, hey, maybe I should have zigged when I should have zagged,
I hate the idea of when people say I have no regrets. I usually think of those people as people who don't think about their life very much. It's kind of a thing you come up with when you resign yourself to the outcome currently and you go like, well, no regrets, because it makes you feel better about things. I think you should regret. I think you should look and say, I missed that. I didn't do that. I should have done that. And then you should go, okay, therefore, what does this help me to do? Because that's what a logical, healthy person does, right? You don't go like, okay, I burned myself on the stove, no regrets.
Right.
Okay, I'll burn myself on the stove, no regrets. I burned myself. Hang on, wait, something's going on here, right? So, I think it's a healthy thing to learn from. I deeply regret not spending my money on Apple shares when I was, was younger. I deeply regret not learning about finance when I had all the excess finance. You know what I mean? I mean, they're seriously, in terms of the years that I was doing stuff on radio and all the other stuff that I was doing as well. I was actually doing a lot of things outside of radio because I learned about multiple streams of income. I learned about, I learned about some aspects of money, but I didn't learn about all aspects of money. But the problem with being young is you don't know what you don't know. Actually, the problem with being anybody is you don't know what you don't know. But when you're young, you're so certain that now you've broken the code. You think you think that, oh, hey, hang on, this is what it's all about. I earn a lot of money. And then you only learn when you are past 40 usually. Like, oh, hang on, investment would have been a good idea, different ways to do things. So first of all, I live with my regrets all the time, but it pushes me forward to do the things that I regret not doing, and I wanna go ahead and do it. I'm not always driven to repeat everything that happened before. I don't try to go back and redo it. That's why I've kind of given up on going back on radio. For a while, I did want to go back, and if you talk about, because it's kind of fun. It's a secret. It's the gig. Look, people on radio right now who try and tell you it's hard work, right? First of all, I think they're overstating it, because it is kind of hard work, but not compared to the other work that people really have to do. Anybody who has to crunch numbers, fill up a spreadsheet, I think you're doing much more work than someone who has to do a radio show where you talk 4 times an hour. I think you don't want to overcomplicate things, but you don't also want to say, you don't tell your friends, hey, listen, I don't do very much. I don't have any redeemable sort of marketable skills. And if I got fired here, I wouldn't be able to find a job anywhere else. People have a tendency to want to say, this is hard work. People on the outside are likely to say that. They'll say things like, hey, how do you know what to say? How do you have so many things to talk about, right? And it's just about resources, right? So like now, when someone says to you, for instance, hey, how do you know what to say? Or someone goes to someone who produces TikTok videos, what do how do you know what to talk about? It's like, is this great mystery? And for those of us who know, you go like, well, you can actually just ask Google what's the latest thing about. And if you want to know anything about anything, you do the research, right? So when I was coming up, life was a bit a bit more different. I won't say we did it internet free, but in the early years of it, I would go to the source and find the interesting thing to say the interesting thing. And there were a whole bunch of people, and there's still a whole bunch of people right now who get away with saying things that are nothing special, right? So, I mean, so for the longest time, I want to get back in the radio because I thought I wasn't done with it. And again, with regret, because when I left When I left Class 95 back in the day, I left on I would say I left with such ferocity because I was upset with a number of things. Um, and I realized with hindsight that had I been a bit more developed as a person, had the right mentors, and whatever, if people, I mean, look, it's something where I blame a lot of people. A lot of people also talk about, you shouldn't blame anybody, and I go like, yeah, no, actually, you can't say like, you cannot blame the captain of the Titanic. He was just doing his job. No, somewhere along the way, people who are supposed to do things and be good at what they do
Mm-hmm.
didn't do as good a job as they could have with me. I really feel that the right and more skillful people would have been able to kind of guide me in the right way. It's not to say that I wasn't a hard-headed person, but at the same time, there were also some other circumstances which really could have helped, but those didn't come about as well. So in terms of regret, yeah, I regretted kind of stepping away from what was, in essence, great success. Had I known more about the world and life and everything, I was stepping away from great success without knowing that I was.
Mm, right. And during that time at all, were you even thinking like, I'm going to be in radio all my life. This is who I am. This is where I'm going to be, until that point that you, of course, as you mentioned, left with such um, ferocity.
Yeah, I didn't leave radio at the time. I left to cross the street to Power 98, and then
Mm-hmm.
to come basically to attack radio from the outside, because I was so unsatisfied or so dissatisfied with what was happening on the inside. In my mind at the time, the ineptitude of that business as it was run.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to change things, and if I couldn't change, I tried for quite a long time. I just had a conversation not so long ago about it's not like I was impatient. I did 10 years of trying to change it from the inside, and that didn't work. And so I'd always believed in, you've got to put your money where your mouth is. And I walked away from essentially what was a pretty sweet gig, because I was putting my money where my mouth was. Most people thought I was leaving for more money. I wasn't. I actually took a pay cut, but with the potential for making more money. So that the idea was for me that, I was prepared to challenge myself and say, I can make a difference while holding true to my own beliefs about things.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You believed in it. That's the thing. You had conviction in it, and very much true to developing your own. Again, it goes back to that personal brand somehow or rather. Do you think that personal brand is really synonymous with your belief then, or is it more of a persona now?
For me, I would say it's intrinsically linked. I think a lot of people actually buy confidence. So when
How
you
does that happen? How do you buy confidence?
no, as in when from the outside, the audience, the employer, the sponsor, they're buying your confidence. They're buying into your
Ah,
confidence, right? So if you come up and you say, I absolutely know what I'm doing, I'm very sure of the idea that I have in mind, they're prepared to take a risk with you, even though it's not really 100%. But if in a world of people who are like, so this could work and whatever, the person who comes forward and has some, first of all, some sense, show some level of talent and a high level of commitment, you are much more likely to want to support them. So like in the world of startups, for instance, and this is where we talk about personal branding as well, right? The startups that attract money, it's
mm-hmm.
not ever just the people who have a good idea. It's all the people who have a confidence in the good idea that they have. No one ever raised a $2 million round because this thing really could work.
Based on your own experience as a salaryman versus your own as a business owner yourself, where do you think it really lies in terms of that difference in developing the personal brand? Like, for example, when I was a salaryman, I used to believe that there would be people who helped to carry me. There will be people who would help guide me and mentor me. As a business owner, now I'm fully accountable for all those things. I no longer have this per chance kind of a mentality. Everything has to be where it should be, and I have to be extremely even more intentional about everything that I'm doing so that it goes the way I want it to go. Whereas in a salaryman, I'm like, I am kind of, well, protected by my organization to an extent, even though it may not always be, the best place I want it to be.
I think it's not that anything you thought of then was true, right? I mean, I think the salaryman is as exposed to the idea of personal branding and the need for personal branding or the failures of personal branding as somebody who is in business, right? So, if you're in the office, you know there's somebody who is seen as the guy who's not going to go anywhere. There's this guy who's unreliable. You know there's a guy who's a creep the girls don't like. There are all these different people, right? And this is personal branding. Whether or not you have the source of your income and the structure around you doesn't change the fact that you belong in society, right? And personal branding is about societal. It's your status in the society that you're operating in. So in the office, you are not any different, I think, in terms of what it's like. And the thing is, we buy the illusion. So, like right now, for instance, I mean, I'm gonna guess that as you asked that, you thought that was a different time. That was a different time as what I am now. I'm trying to open the eyes to people and go like, you know what? No, it's never different. The moment you walk in for an interview for a job somewhere, you are in the game. You are already being judged based on what it is, right? So your shoes make a difference. Your hairstyle makes a difference. Your breath makes a difference. Your language makes a difference. Did you show up on time? All those things make a difference because, like it or not, at that point, people are branding you. There's no, the human brain is a sorting mechanism, right? So you're gonna get sorted straight away. Every moment along the way, you're being sorted. And if you show yourself as to be someone who's unreliable or unengaged or disengaged when you're at the office, that is going into the branding. So that when someone thinks about, hey, listen, who do I recommend as the next person to go on this leadership course? I mean, as horrible as that sounds, you want to be the person that you think, this guy's got the most potential. You don't want to be the one that everyone says, everybody in this department has gone already. It's time we looked at Edric. It's his turn.
Yeah. I was in that position for a long time. I used to wait for it. I used to just put my head down and work and wait for it.
Yeah. I think it's an illusion. Like I said, it's an illusion. It's an illusion. It's a story that you sell yourself as the truth, and you reinforce it. And I don't know what you were in your previous life, but it's very likely that what we do is we look at what's uncomfortable and we stay inside of that, right? Yep. And then we rationalize that. So we first of all don't do the outgoing thing. We don't do networking. I still hate networking, by the way, but we don't do that. We don't go and print out name cards for ourselves and make sure we have all the everything's is up to date. We don't do social media. We don't do LinkedIn. We don't do all those things. Yep. Then what we do is we try and build a story around ourselves that says that not doing that is okay because I'm not about that, right? And it's a total falsehood because unless what you do is completely without the need for other people to make a judgment about you, you absolutely are making a difference either to the positive or the negative with what you do or you don't do.
Yeah. The irony of it all is that when you say, I'm not about that and I don't want to put it out there, nobody would know either way.
Yeah, I guess so.
So in order for people to know that you're not about that, you have to put it out there that you're not about that. Then people would know that you're not about that. So it's a strange thing. I was just having this wonderful conversation with my clients as well with regards to personal branding for their staff, encouraging them to write a little bit more, post a little bit more. And this led to a point which I'd love to seek your advice on, is the different phases and phases really of imposter syndrome. Because case in point, You know, somebody brought this up to me, and she was saying, I don't really feel so comfortable posting things on LinkedIn, because if I did, who's going to want to read my stuff anyway? I'm just a, something, something, something. And why would the C-suite even want to read this? So do you, obviously I brought it up, and it's like, that sounds a bit like imposter syndrome, because you have a lot to offer, but you don't believe in it. So what's this all about? Did you go through that when you, in your younger days, and how'd you overcome that?
The help I got was because I had to fill airtime, right? So I'm trying to, I have all these breaks to fill every hour. And what I try to do is I try to fill it with something that is valuable and thoughtful. So as I'm doing that, I'm doing the research. I'm actually putting stuff out that is what I thought was of value, right? So that helped me in the sense that instead of this thing where I go like I don't know who wants to listen to all this or what have you. I was in a battle for attention, right? Because my idea is, especially when I was on radio, is that I am in competition with everything else that's happening in your life. So people would look at radio and say, oh, the competition is whatever they called it. And I said, no, radio is more than just in competition with TV. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but I'm actually in competition with everything else that's taking up your attention, even your work, right? So for me, it would be a win for me when I hear about people who get to the office and stay in their car until the show is done, because I got you, right? I usurped your time and your attention. The process to get that is actually to put out stuff that's interesting, right? So if you feel that you don't need attention, you can convince yourself you don't need to do this, right? But as we just talked about a while ago, you do need attention, because that is how things can happen, right? So if you have an idea, if you can't get the audience's attention, they're not going to give it to you. And if they're not used to giving you attention,
Right.
you're going to be going a really uphill. You're really going uphill to try to gain someone's confidence, because like the person who's never spoken up before doesn't have the room's attention, because people are spending so much time on, hey, who's this?
Mm.
Right? So you kind of have to work on who is this, so that when it comes to time to say something, they go like, oh, look, Angela is saying something. People know who this person is, rather than have this confused look. This person work here.
Right. Got it. I love to draw parallels, and I would love to get your inputs on this. You've been on stage so many times, and I would say that there's this thing about stage presence that we learn as we, get on stage more often. How do you translate this to social media when you type a post and you want to have that presence in the same kind of manner, whereby once you get on stage, people look at you, they don't have to applaud, but they know, oh, okay, this dude's on stage, I want to listen. It's the same thing. How do I get that kind of presence on my social media? Just by writing.
I would say then you have to watch the standard that you set yourself for what is publishable, right? Don't just publish everything and anything, right? Ask yourself, what is your brand? What do you want to be known for, and why do you need to build this goodwill with the audience, right?
Mm.
So I mean, I'll give you a really good example. You have people in your feed. I'm sure your feed gives you alerts all the time and says, oh, so and so's got an update, so and so's got an update, someone's got an update, someone just posted something, whatever it is, right? You have a way of already looking at that alert without seeing the message at all. You kind of go like, okay, I'm gonna check out so and so. I mean, like you get those alerts and you don't do anything, but suddenly someone significant posts, and then you go like, okay, I'm gonna go and check this person out, right?
Mm.
That only happens if this person has always shown you that they're not wasting your time. So you do have to take a little bit of time to do things that are worthwhile, right? So a lot of people I don't say a lot of people. I hate that phrase actually. It's there are a number of people who are known to be experts who just say like, just post, just go out there and just post, right?
Mm.
And I think that's just some of the worst advice, because let's put it this way, right? If you're trying to develop your reputation as a dancer, learn to dance first, right? Then dance. You don't just go like, dance, right? Because then what you do is you develop your reputation as someone maybe who is not inhibited, maybe who has no taste to understand that they don't dance well, and then they're just noisy, right? So you don't want to you don't want to do that. So you have to think a little bit about, okay, so what am I doing this for? I mean, so social media, it's not about what most people believe it to be about. As if people think, oh, it's just sharing your life, because that's the illusion that you buy, right? Whereas the people who do it intentionally, let's say for profit, this for profit social media,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very different thing. It isn't just like, you actually have to do things like curate what you put out, because you're putting a message across. So if you look at the so-called celebrities of the world, you know they're not just every single photo that they took about every single moment in their life. It really took some time for this photo to be the right photo, to be cropped, to be filtered, to be, made or whatever the thing you do, right?
Yeah.
So it's about that curation as well, so that ultimately you get to put your best foot forward. Ultimately, you get to say something in that moment. What is the something you're saying? I'm successful, I'm wealthy, I have good taste, I have good skin, I have whatever that message is, whether it's in a picture or in the words that you use as well. You think about it and go like, okay, how do I do that? How do I learn to do that? And for the person who's starting out, they say like, I don't have that skill. You go, yeah, great, because at least you understand. Maybe you're not there yet. So what can you do about that, right?
Right.
If you want to be a better writer, guess what? You can take a writing course.
Just
You're
start
right.
writing.
Get feedback, right? And then maybe, find a group of people who really want to do better at that. You want to do better videos? Maybe find someone to help you to do that. I mean, basically, it's what I do as a coach. Self promotion, I guess, but it's really that kind of thing. You really have to be getting, well, first of all, doing some of the work, getting the feedback, and then improving, and that usually works out quite nicely.
No, I really like what I really, really, really love what you said, because there's so many things in there where when we're starting out, right? There are a lot of fallacies in the brain. Just thinking that, I don't have the skills. I don't know how to do it. Oh, this person's already doing it. I don't want to do it anymore, right? There's so many things that happen in that process, especially when it comes to curating your personal brand. One of the things that I mean, just to share, I recently discovered was that
Yeah.
building your personal brand was really about identifying the things that matter to you, that are of value to other people. And I found that it sometimes gets very difficult to identify which is more important and how to align those things. So, for example, what I find important is my family, but how does my family then bring value to other people? Could it be the family values that I want to share, or is it because I think that my kids are cute and other people think my kids are cute? So it really depends how we actually put those things forward, right? And that's where, again, the imposter syndrome starts to play up. The little gremlins start to talk and think, oh, this is not worthwhile, that is not worthwhile. But if we don't really go through that own personal curation of running it almost like it's our own business, our own IP, it never seems to flourish. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think everybody has an inner Dan Brown, right? So if you watch the movies, if you read the books, Dan Brown's stuff is half fact, right? Half of it's true, the rest of it's made up, right? But it's written and presented as a whole as the real thing. And what we do is actually combine that as well. We combine some truth with our suppositions, and then we go like, this is the new truth, and therefore I believe it. So what you were talking about before in terms of like, why should people want to read what I'm saying, and those things that you put under the imposter syndrome, half of it's true. Half of it's true, as in, like, I don't know how to do this. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interesting. That's true. Today, that's true. But the part that's Dan Brownish is where you go, like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not interesting, so I won't do this. I can't do this. That part there, that so, is actually, it's a false equivalence that you're giving to the whole thing. You go like, I'm afraid of heights, therefore I will never jump out of a plane, is actually not necessarily true. If you're willing to go through whatever it is you have to go through to jump out of a plane, remember the parachute. That always helps. But if that is what what is required for you to break yourself out of those things which are innately true but not permanent, then you move forward. So the falsehood for me is, it's I have a slightly different view from I think what you're talking about, because I do believe that there are real reasons today for people not to do things. They're very real reasons. And I just go like, okay, now what is the reason that's going to get you across the threshold, right? So if I ask you, I said, listen, Edric, can I give you $1,000 to jump out the second story window? Now, depending on your level of training and comfort and all that, you might go, yeah, okay. Then I go like, hey, what would you say if I give you $10,000 to jump out the fifth story window? Are you more inclined, less inclined?
I definitely, I mean, I'm inclined, that's for sure, right? But there's a but. There's always a but,
Yeah.
which is, I've definitely asked about all the safety equipment. What can make sure that I can survive that, so I can collect the 10 Gs at the end of the day?
Yeah, so let me take you to another place now. I'm gonna take you to the 7th floor of this building. I'm gonna give you no money at all, and I can make you jump. The building's on fire.
Okay.
Right? So this is the thing people don't realize in their life. They don't realize that, yes, the building, I have to figure out how this building can be on fire for me, so that I will get off my ass and say, I'll do the thing that is so difficult to do. I will go for that photography class that will help me to take better photographs. I will go for a photo editing class that will help do that. I will do the 30-day video challenge so that I can get comfortable with this. I'm uncomfortable with it now. I will join Toastmasters and end up making a speech that I regret while I'm doing it the first time. You will do all those things because you got to find a way for your building to be on fire. Because this is the thing, right? You don't want to be in a situation where the first time you ever feel that you have to make this big jump is because the building is on fire, because you never thought of it before. And that's what's going to happen. Like, so now I was just listening to a podcast today about AI, and everybody talks about, the dangers of and the risks involved, right? Singapore is I would say in terms of the kind of situation it is, right? Because we are so service based, because we're so much about processes and delivering all these things, right? I think we're the most vulnerable to the dangers of AI, because if your job is to write a report, if anything in your job is if you're measured primarily in the area of writing a report, AI is coming for you, and it's going to be very easy for AI to come and eat your lunch, right? So I think people should not wait until that time to come along and say, I'm going to be the next victim of AI. I think people should to jump on the bandwagon, try and figure out and harness how to use this technology so that they can become more relevant as well.
Absolutely, because if, let's say, for example, you can't wait till the building's on fire, right? Like what you mentioned. At the same time, it's kind of like, how do you get comfortable with the idea that I need the building to be on fire? I need to set the building on fire first before it gets me. That kind of makes it sound like it sounds like you're not a very plan B kind of guy. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger has a very famous speech whereby he says, you must burn the boats. There is no backup plan. You go, and there's no plan B. There is no contingency plan. You just go.
Okay, so that's the Viking principle for
Burn the
attacking.
boats.
Yeah, burn the boats. I actually, when I give advice to people, I tell people that's a bad idea. It really is a bad idea
Yes.
because what you really want to do is be strategic. So I'm a trader and I also teach people how to trade, right? And the idea of burn the boats basically means in trading, right? I'm going to put it all on this trade, and then if it doesn't win, I'm dead, right? So it has to work.
Mm.
I mean, just it's a bit of hyperbole there, right? I think there's a thing about how you can manage risk. I always think life is about managing risk. If you have this big plan, figure out that you have time, right? Like why when you get on the plane, why do they do the announcements at the start of the journey where they talk about the safety about the plane, right? Where the exits are and this and that. Try to identify where this is, and all those things, right? Why do we do it at the beginning of a flight? Is because when something is happening is not the time. Like when the plane's roof has been torn off, right? And then you try and talk about what to do at that time. That's really not the time. But do it in the relative safety of while you're taxiing, right? You're just in the middle of sitting down. There's nothing else happening. We can take the opportunity to build something for the future. So when it comes to your career, the same thing as well. I don't believe that you have to throw away your career just so you can jump to another career,
Mm.
because that really isn't. I think it's not smart. I think if you really, really hate your job, then take the ultimate revenge, right? Make your preparation for leaving and have someone pay for that time.
I agree with you. I like that mentality very much. At the same time, somehow or other, there are some people that are really, or at least maybe they do believe so, that they are really all or nothing people.
I'm a reformed version of that person.
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah, I was very much about all or nothing. This is why I left the radio business that I mean, in the way I left one radio station for another, and I left along those ideas. A lot of it was about all or nothing, and that's the kind of, unfortunately, that's the kind of romanticized thinking that you will learn from the movies, right? I mean, no one's made this great big movie because when they do the show about the negotiator, it's not because the negotiator actually said, that was a really, really good negotiation. Everything was win-win. The hostages, they were all released, and all the terrorists got to go as well, and they got half their ransom. We're all happy. That's not what people want from that kind of thing. They want to be in a situation where the negotiator goes in, things go wrong, and in the end, the negotiator kills everybody. But he tries to do that while hanging on to his sanity or whatever it is. But we like the extremes so much. We don't take value. We don't take any. We don't give value to what is a middle ground,
Mm.
which can be successful, right? Now, I know the people who used to work with me are going like, "What, Joe? You had that in you?" No, I still believe in holding high standards. I don't believe in the idea that I should, reduce my standards to fit what yours are. But you know what? I think there should be some movement. If I'm up here and you're down there, we should meet in the middle. Or if you want to see the other way, I'm down here. You can't just say to me, you have to come up to where I am. You got to go like, well, how can I maybe make some concessions so that, this is better than what it
Mm.
was before, rather than not at all.
Yeah.
Because there is value in I'm trying to kind of come up with a good analogy here, but I mean, I guess half a steak is better than
No
no
steak
steak
at
at all.
all. Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. Uh, you mentioned that it is a very romanticized version or an ideal, right? But that's also because, since we were kids, we always thought about, I think we have to be the hero of our own story.
Yeah.
And that idea of a hero is the one that saves the day, is the one that swoops in and gets the chicks and gets to wear a white singlet and kill all the bad guys in the building and stuff like that. Yeah, okay.
The
So
singlet is a bit disturbing, I must tell you, actually. But
it's hey, Bruce Willis, man, he did it in Die Hard, right? And it was in the middle of winter as well. So the badass badass cop.
I think the real issue with this is usually the stimulus around you, right? So this hero thing doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Bruce Willis doesn't become the crazy, the hard cop that he becomes because nothing happened to him, right? So the problem really is most times companies are responsible. Companies and the corporate culture and everything else around you are responsible for putting so much pressure on someone that they go like, I really hate this, right? So when I was faced with my end of that particular chapter of my life, there were pressures that were really affecting me, and there were things that were being done that really really upset me at my core, so that I became somebody much more willing to do those big extreme things, right? So,
Mm.
if just give you an example, right? If a company looks after you all the time, then people are really genuinely surprised when someone says, he decided to just up and go. Like, in a rage, he stood up and then he said, "Oh, screw all of you," and he walked out and he took his computer with him, right? And people were genuinely surprised by that. But how many times have you been in Singapore where when someone does that in the office, everybody else goes like, "Oh man, I wish I could do that."
Not many,
It's
actually.
oh well, you've perhaps been in a better situation than I have. I think a lot of people end up in a situation where they go, I really, really have to do this because it's really too much of a price to pay on the other side. So I have someone who I'm coaching in the area of trading, right? And there is a genuine resentment, even though he gets a lot of good money from where he works. There's a genuine resentment for the company and their demands of his time, because well, it's not unreasonable, but at the same time it's like it's still excessive. He's not, you don't feel free because it's all there, right? So I think companies have a lot to say, a lot to answer for, in the sense that you can do things in such a way that people feel significant and useful and valued in their organizations, to the point where you go like, you know what, this may not be the best pay in the world, but I like where I am. I'm really going to miss these people I'm working with. I really miss, all this. I think most. Well, again, this is a gross generalization, but I think too many companies, right? The employees find themselves in a situation where it's not that much of a sacrifice to walk away, right? So you feel like you are selling out by coming to work every day. So you think, okay, then how do I not sell out? I think that I do know a lot of friends. So I have a lot of friends who are in corporate life who do not feel like they're selling out, because they're doing what is significant. They're making
Mm.
a difference. They're improving the lives of their colleagues, and at the same time, the company's bottom line as well.
Perception is reality. If they think that they're doing something fulfilling, that it helps them, it's not about the company. It's really about helping them, and it's in line with their own personal goals, visions, values, and all that. To be honest, right? Okay, if a company really does pay your salary and you love the place and you believe in what they do, I think more often than not, you're gonna enjoy it. But by and large, when people find jobs, they look at the dollar sign and then they're willing to sell out a little bit. And that's where it kind of chips away and eats into your soul. I really do think it's like 80% of people who are easily corporate zombies. And you see it in the train every day, every day. When you take the trains, I challenge anybody who's listening to this, like, just get off your phone. If you are listening to this right now, just continue to listen to this, right? Listen to the smooth sounds of Joe Augustin and Edric. And after that, then look around. Okay, look around at all the people in the train with you right now. They're probably looking at their phones, scrolling mindlessly, just doom scrolling, as they say, or as you do. And what exactly are they doing? Do you see life in their eyes at all? Or is it just the blue light reflecting and their souls are just leaving their bodies?
And there's the very small chance that you'll make eye contact with someone who happens to be listening to the exact same podcast at the exact same time and is looking up as well. And
That
you're
would be
welcome.
nice.
Yeah.
But it's that would be very, very encouraging if anybody actually listens to my podcast. But that's good. Anyway, truth be told, like honestly speaking, yeah, the corporate zombie thing is no joke because look, if you really don't enjoy what you do, and it's difficult to also kind of convince yourself to think that you are gonna find something that you're gonna enjoy in that place. You know, it's difficult. But if you can,
Like I
more
said,
power to you.
man. Like I said, therefore, find the thing that your current circumstances are going to finance till you get over the wall, right?
Yeah, correct.
So that's what I would suggest. I mean, the give yourself a revenge story if you like, right? So
Yeah.
whatever you need to drive you to get on to the next day, I can guarantee you, first of all, for those people who talk about or think about this thing about it has to be all or nothing, and you want to get to the day when you can do that. Yeah, it's actually life seriously is a lot easier when you have an income. That's
Mm,
that's just the bottom line, right? I
yep.
mean, you can try doing it a different way, but in my experience, having a lack of income can really get in the way of your dreams and happiness.
Now, Joe, what do you do to keep yourself challenged and uncomfortable?
I don't need to get uncomfortable to learn. I'm very lucky to be somebody who really, really just enjoys learning all the time. Like right now, as I'm spending the time with you, as you're speaking, as we're having this conversation, I'm still picking up stuff as well. I'm hearing what you're talking about. I'm reacting to it. I am tossing around ideas and contemplating. So I am also still in the process of thinking. For me, the day is about that. I will watch shows, read articles, listen to podcasts, and all of it feeds a deepening of knowledge and experience. And it's a bit sad, I guess, if people were to look at it from the outside. But I'm going to be watching Coldplay in a few days, and I know that for myself, my experience of Coldplay is going to be very different from the experience of Coldplay that everybody else is having. I'll be there watching lighting cues, listening to sounds, and being aware of what the various things are causing me to feel, and looking around and seeing how that's done. I'll watch gestures that light up the audience. I'll look at screens and how this is done and that is done. All those things for me is a constant. It's a constant education.
Mm,
Uh, there are some things that I do go out to learn because maybe I'm a bit, I guess, uncomfortable, or the areas that I feel I have to develop myself a bit more. So even though I'm, a trader and I also coach other people in trading, I'm also going to be attending a trading course, to extend my knowledge in that area. I do go and learn how to coach more successfully. I will watch people who are doing things like coaching and like counseling to again learn more things about them. And so I'm learning again as well from everything around me.
Joe, give me the greatest advice you've heard and how that's helped you in toughest times.
Whoa.
Oh, that took a turn real quick.
Well, no, but I mean, see, the thing about this is that you were kind enough to send me a list of questions that we want to talk about. And one of the things that I really, really try to thrive on is to live in the moment and have the reaction as it's happening, right? So,
That's a nice way
uh,
of saying you didn't read the questions.
oh no, I did the early part of it. Then I went, oh, okay, there's gonna be generally this. I intentionally actually try to stay away from it because I don't have those moments where when you ask me something, I go like, well, Edric, it's very interesting that you asked me this question. It's a good question. It's a good question, even
Okay, we can hang up
even
right
even
now.
though I read it. Okay, so the line that affects me, I think one of the deepest level actually is this line that is the last line of a speech by Steve Jobs. Stay hungry, stay foolish,
Mm,
right? Um, it captures so much of what I think can make a difference in the world, right? Because the idea that you don't know everything, that you are still hungry to go and do more, that is something that is I think that's the kind of drive that can come from that is amazing. It'll make big things happen, right?
mm.
And I think what happens, you see that happening in so many people as they progress, as they become more successful, as they become, more comfortable, they lose that, right?
Yeah.
And then you realize that here you are sitting in front of a person who believes they know everything, no longer foolish, and they really don't want to do anything that really is hard to do. They're no longer hungry, right? So
Mm.
stay hungry and stay foolish.
English is a very funny language, come to think of it, because you're saying stay hungry and stay foolish. I was thinking of it in a very literal fashion, that if you stay foolish, you may end up staying hungry. Oh, you
Very
remain
very
hungry,
Singaporean
actually.
parent in you. You've been brought up well in the education system.
Yes, it is, unfortunately, byproduct of some of these things. Thank you so much for that, and I hope that has been very inspiring. Now, last bit of the podcast that we always do is a short, quick fire round. Now we have 10 questions for you. All right, are you
And
ready,
this
sir?
time it's absolutely unprepared because I have not seen the questions.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. All right, so Joe Augustin and the Epic Questionnaire. Are you ready, sir?
Sure, why not?
Of course. All right, question number one. One word you love the most.
Curiosity.
One word you dislike very much.
Hmm. It's somewhere close to the word assume, but I like assuming myself, but it's a it's a kind it's when man, I don't know. Okay, unqualified assumption. I know it's not one word, but that captures how I feel about things.
All right, we got the gist of that. This episode of the podcast was brought to you by thesaurus.com. So, if you could have a conversation with one person, fictional, non fictional, dead or alive, who would that be?
Man, that's going to be an interesting one. A fictional. Okay, well, I mean, look, I think if I could get a conversation with this person, it'd be interesting, and if there wasn't a time limit, it'd be good. God,
Which one?
which one?
Ah.
I see. But this is a meta question, whether or not it's we deem the term to be fictional or not. So I'll just leave it for you to decide. But yeah, if God, as
Right.
described in, I guess, in the various holy texts, was available for a conversation, that would
Yeah.
be quite
Because if it
interesting.
were Hindu, we'd have a long menu to go through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it'll be ask capital me anything.
Right. Okay, great. And what do you say to yourself in the mirror every morning?
I usually just groan. I mean, I'm not very inspirational to myself. Usually it's kind of like
Very, very inspiring.
yeah.
Yes. Name one superpower you'd like to have.
The ability to convey understanding.
That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard that one. Thank you. Favorite dish to eat?
A really really good bacon and eggs in the morning, and almost every morning.
Favorite travel spot or the next travel spot you want to go to?
So this is me. I'm very boring with travel. I've actually been to many places, and my extent of travel has been to the hotel room, the lobby, and the ballroom. Uh, but if I were to be able to go somewhere, and has to do with an isolation from the elements, I'd like to be in space.
Space tourism is on the rise.
Yes, but still quite expensive.
All right. And something in the arts you've always wanted to do, but yet to do so.
I don't think there's anything left that I really, really want to do that I haven't done. I would say I would say actually a full on public speech about something that's more corporate. I mean I know that kind of doesn't seem like a really really strong. Oh, I tell you what it is. Yeah. I'm looking forward to doing my first and hopefully the first of many mentalism shows. So
Mm.
I want to do something with mentalism. I want to be, I think what I can do there is combine a lot of things that I enjoy right now with storytelling and stagecraft,
Mm.
and wrap it all around the magical arts and create something that hopefully is mystical and emotional for the audience.
Interesting. It's going to be called mentertainment.
Better name than that, I'm sure. But good effort. Nice try.
Sorry, I tried to get some royalty on something. I could have like
Yeah.
smoked it through. Anyway, what does
Next on
retirement look like
stage,
to you?
ladies and gentlemen, racking up entertainment. Please welcome.
Entertainment, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like okay. Then all the dancing guys start coming out. Yep. Anyway, so what does retirement look like to you?
I don't ever think about retirement. Actually, that's something that I'm not able to contemplate because I think the idea. Actually, okay. I mean, okay. Ideal retirement for me is just having the choice to do whatever you want. I mean, you want to work, you work. You don't want to work, you don't work. It's just about having the choice. The having to do anything is a real bore. But I like to be able to do things, and that would include things like just being healthy enough to do the things that I want to do. Right? I'd rather not have to sit in a chair because I can't stand up. Right? But if I
Mm,
want to sit in this chair, I want to do it because, well, I could. If I want to stand up, I can. I can run if I want to run. But I choose to sit in this chair, and I choose to sleep. I choose to do whatever it is. It's all because I can.
right. And how do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy?
I've been thinking about this idea, and I think the word legacy is it's almost toxic because you're trying to say to people, remember me for this, right? Um, what I what I'd like for my legacy is I did everything that I did, and you remember me because of that. It's like whatever it was, you remember me for something. I don't want to leave behind a library or some kind of thing where you go like, oh, this is the thing I remember this person for. Um, I'd like I'd like to be remembered, if anything, if I'd like the freedom and the legacy to be that everybody who remembers me remembers some story or something about me. It was something about the way he treated me, the way he thought about things. But it doesn't have to be this one thing. I think legacy is toxic that way. People try to filter out everything, and then they say, "This is my legacy. This shall be my legacy." When the reality is, your audience kind of decides what they
Mm,
what they remember.
true. It's chef's choice, so they say.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. You've gone through all 10 questions. Thanks again, Joe, for doing the podcast. And, before we end off, how can anybody get in touch with you for some of the programs that you're probably running?
Well, here's the thing. I'm on LinkedIn. If you look for Joe Augustin, Augustin has no E at the end. You'll find me. If just look for the one who's basically been doing radio and now is doing presentation coaching. On LinkedIn, most of my stuff is about presentation coaching. But if you look for me as well on Facebook, you'll find me. And I'm hesitating on saying the websites because right now my websites, as we speak, they're not up. But there's a chance that by the time the podcast goes out, joeaugustin.com will be up, and radiojoe.com will be up, right? But if you go right there now, it's gonna seem like a really weird place on the internet. But yeah, those are the websites, and this is actually me kind of tricking myself into getting this done before this podcast goes out, and hopefully, like you're saying, no one's listening, so there won't be any pressure.
Well, that's again, once again, my guests are always very encouraging to be on the podcast and also sharing in my joy of not having any listeners. So, really appreciate that and really appreciate you, Joe. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Edric. It's real fun, and thanks for having me on the show. And keep going at this. I mean, look, in podcasting, half of the success is really just being there,
Mm.
right? Just being there. You show up again, and I think the way it's working on the algorithms and stuff like that, the podcast people will begin to find you because they're going to start, doing things like tagging based on what's been said, and more. AIs are now listening to the podcast and actually codifying it. So we'll be on someone's feed somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, you're on a lot of people's feeds, that's for sure. So you don't have a problem with that, but you're definitely helping me. That's for sure. And again, I'm very, very grateful for you coming onto this podcast. We are, I don't know, maybe 70 episodes in, thereabout by now. I can't even, I lose count. But more importantly, I just hope that this has been a great experience for you as well. And I had a great time. Thank you so much.
Hey, man, thanks.
Okay, bye everyone.